A shocking scene as police chase down a stolen military truck barreling down from Bel Air to Baltimore.
He jumped out of the vehicle and he jumped up, went up the street, up the alley, and the police chased him and tackled him down.
The BPD police shooting of a 17-year-old sparks questions. The training officers go through to identify an armed person before they see a weapon. For the second time this week, a teen is accused of injuring an officer with a stolen car. We question what's being done to keep juveniles on the right side of the law.
There was a murder at Trader Joe's. That was a drug deal, and it was over marijuana.
Then our team investigates if the recent legalization of marijuana will help curb crime surrounding the drug.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Fox 45 begins with breaking news tonight as police chase a suspect in a military truck across county lines spanning some 30 miles.
This video from citizens showing the tail end of this chase in East Baltimore as police close in on that truck. Good evening, I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. That stolen truck made its way from the Harford County area to downtown Baltimore.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel spoke to witnesses and has their reaction to this very unexpected sight, Jeff.
You got that right. Heads were turning in East Baltimore tonight when a large military-style truck, a stolen truck, came rolling through an East inner-city neighborhood. It turns out that police tell us the truck was stolen. It was owned by a private family in Harford County, but it was stolen earlier this evening from a location on Rock Spring Road, we're told, in Bel Air. Officers had no trouble spotting the large camouflage-looking vehicle, but when they attempted to pull it over, the driver refused to stop. Officers pursued the truck down I-95 and into Baltimore, where it finally stopped in a narrow alley off Dean Street in East Baltimore. An officer managed to make an arrest a few feet away, but in East Baltimore tonight, it caught everyone by surprise.
My heart was racing when I seen the police. When I seen it, it was more than what I heard.
Really bizarre, because the first thing I'm thinking is where did the military truck come from, because any type of military is far from Baltimore. It's not, anywhere near here. So you had to travel far from wherever you came from. So.
And it came to your neighborhood.
Absolutely, which is the scary part, like I said, because it was, that's not what I was expecting.
Police have yet to identify the suspect, who right now is being treated and examined at a nearby hospital. He's expected to be charged in Harford County later tonight. We're live. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. New information on the 17-year-old shot by Baltimore police Thursday after police say he was carrying a gun and refused to drop it during a foot chase. The boy's mother says that he's lost a kidney, spleen, and half a lung.
Police say the 17-year-old was armed and also showed, quote, characteristics of an armed person.
When they called it out, they said the individual was characteristics of an armed person. That's why they started to approach him. As soon as they approached, the suspect took off running. During the foot pursuit, the officer gave several verbal commands for him to drop the weapon. He could clearly see the weapon in his right hand as he was running. As they turned into the alley, the officer discharged his weapon and struck the suspect.
Well, this incident raises questions about when officers are trained to shoot a suspect and when to hold their fire.
Fox 45's Keith Daniel has perspective from a former officer.
Well, Maxine and Kai, police have not released the name of the officer involved in that shooting, but they say he is part of the department's Southwestern District's police action team. And tonight, a closer look at part of the action that police took in that shooting. The shooting of a teen by a Baltimore City police officer. 17-year-old Mackay in the hospital now, critical condition, with a gunshot wound to the upper body. Cell phone video we obtained shows the aftermath of that shooting. The teen, who police say had a gun, seen lying on the ground as an officer renders aid. Tonight, questions after that shooting.
What that gets down to now is probable cause or reasonable suspicion.
A closer look at the rules of engagement, notably when an officer thinks someone may have a gun. Garland Nixon, a retired officer with the Maryland Natural Resources Police, which has statewide police authority, weighs in. Nixon, at one time a major with the NRP's training division, tells us what training an officer might rely on when that officer suspects someone might be armed.
There are a number of things, not the least of which being, you look for a bulge, you look for something in the belt. And keep in mind, you look for the actions of the person. You've been trained to look, okay, this is where a person puts a gun, this is how it looks when it sticks through their shirt, things of that nature.
The BPD officer shot Mackay Thursday afternoon near Frederick Avenue and South Catherine Street in southwest Baltimore.
Hey, Jordan!
Investigators say the officer was sitting on a stoop talking to a resident when he saw Mackay and believed he may be armed.
I can't tell you what the officer saw, but then when they called it out, they said an individual with characteristics of an armed person. That's why they started to approach him.
Police say Mackay ran off. A foot pursuit occurred. Investigators say Mackay was holding a gun, ignoring officers' commands to drop the weapon. Then one officer fired more than one gunshot, hitting the teen.
Well, at that point, when they realize that there's a weapon, they understand it's a dangerous situation, and they have a right to act.
Well, police say they are reviewing body-worn camera video as part of this investigation. Meantime, no word tonight on what charges, if any, the teen faces. We're live tonight at Baltimore City Police Headquarters. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Well, children on both sides of the crime crisis has been an issue all year in Baltimore. 10 children have been shot and killed. That's up 67% from this time last year. Fox 45 has been pressing Mayor Brandon Scott for weeks now about a potential summer crime surge and how the city is preparing. The mayor says he's working on a comprehensive summer youth engagement strategy, but some argue it's not enough.
For the past 8 years, we've seen that the problem of violence, especially youth-involved violence, is not being solved by a government agency.
Well, the mayor is also leaning on his Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and the Safe Streets program to keep crime down this summer. But Monzi will soon be under new leadership as Director Shante Jackson is set to resign next month. In a story you'll see first on Fox, Mackenzie Frost spoke to former Mayor Sheila Dixon, who founded Safe Streets, about what could come next for the program.
Former Mayor Sheila Dixon modeled the Safe Streets program here in Baltimore after what was being done in Chicago at the time. She says what's happening now isn't quite what she envisioned and thinks the leaders inside City Hall should pump the brakes until they figure out what's working at these locations and what isn't.
We have to reassess it.
Former Mayor Sheila Dixon has been out of office for a while, but she's quick to remember first bringing the gun violence intervention program Safe Streets to Term City.
I thought that was a great idea.
Opening with just 2 spots, Cherry Hill and Safe Streets East, which operates in the McKeldrey Park area. At first, Dixon says the program was run out of the health department with a contract given to Living Classrooms to manage the sites. Eventually, the program growing to 10 locations scattered all over the city, cementing the program's place in Baltimore's efforts to break the grip gun violence has on Charm City. Looking at the way the Safe Streets program is organized now, over a decade later after it was launched, do you think it's effective?
Let me say this, not knowing how all of them are run, but have talked to individuals and have watched different activities that have taken place within Safe Street, I question. Missions change all the time, but whether or not it really has the overall rooted mission from the way it started. Rallies and the give outs that they do, I mean, that's great and that's fine, but I think the emphasis has to be on being out there during times when the rest of us are asleep, figuring out what's happening, what's going on.
Living Classrooms maintaining control of some sites until last fall, when Mayor Brandon Scott announcing a shift away from the patchwork of nonprofits running the locations. Instead, just 2, LifeBridge and Catholic Charities. The change coming after nearly a year of questions from Fox 45 News about how the nonprofits ran the locations and questioning the effectiveness and accountability of Safe Streets overall.
I'm not necessarily sure if that was necessarily the best idea. You know, LifeBridge is a nonprofit hospital who, in my view, should be providing health care to help the Park Heights and surrounding communities get healthier. And Catholic Charities has a whole multiple of different pieces, of groups that they work with. Catholic Charities is, in my perspective, is very questionable anyway. I don't think I would have given them Safe Streets, because where is their expertise in public safety and providing the kind of services needed that those individuals can benefit from?
He has shared with me.
Fox 45 News diving into the hiring practices of Safe Streets after speaking with the family of a man, Damon Scroggins, who was looking to be a Safe Streets worker. Scroggins gunned down in his girlfriend's house. Has your view of the Safe Streets program changed throughout this whole?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Yes. My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart.
Dixon says those feelings aren't surprising.
Well, you hear some of that on the street, that it's a criminal enterprise. I would hope that the city does not turn a blind eye, because you don't want to motivate individuals to be a part of this effort just to then to begin to do criminal activity.
Does the program need to be paused and reevaluated?
With the definitely with the various activities that you just noted, I think people in the leadership of City Hall and the entities that are Safe, LifeBridge and Catholic Charities, I think probably need to back off and do an assessment to determine what the challenges are and what changes need to take place. Sounds like it's time to do that, particularly with all the money that's being pumped into Safe Street.
You can read more from our interview with the former mayor, especially when it comes to the hiring practices for these violence interrupters, in this story on our website at foxbaltimore.com. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, that brings us to our question of the day now. Do you believe a special prosecutor should investigate the Safe Streets program? So far, 98% of people who voted say yes. You can make your voice heard by heading to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
All right, let's go live to the Inner Harbor tonight ahead of what could be another rainy spring weekend in Maryland.
Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax is here tracking our next weather maker and the impact it could have on your Mother's Day weekend. Jasmine?
Yeah, we have another weekend and another chance for rain, but at least today we started off on a positive note. Notice around Maryland, we're still pretty dry, but as we look west, we've got areas of rain, and that's what's headed our way late tonight into early tomorrow morning. So if you have any plans, be prepared for some rain. Otherwise, temperatures currently in the 70s. Our numbers will gradually fall to the 60s, and we do start with dry weather for the night, but tomorrow morning that changes over to rain, especially as we get close to daybreak. If you're leaving out early in the morning, you will want the rain gear, and even by the afternoon, we're still talking showers in the forecast. Coming up, I'll break down the timing of tomorrow's rain and possible storms, and I'll let you know what to expect for Mother's Day. Back to you.
Long lines at the Mexican border today as Title 42 expires, bringing an end to a pandemic-era measure allowing Border Patrol agents to turn migrants away for COVID reasons. Several border states concerned about an influx of migrants, but what's actually going to change now that Title 42 is over? We'll have that story coming up at 10:30.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, a police officer is hit by a stolen car in Anne Arundel County, similar to an incident in Baltimore County this week. Both crimes allegedly committed by children. Fox 45 News pushes lawmakers for answers. Reports of smoke inside Baltimore metro stations forces a complete shutdown of the system. We'll have an update on the condition as the tracks slowly start to reopen. Then coming up at 10:30 tonight, there's been a rise in violence over drug deals gone wrong in Baltimore County. Why legal experts say the culprit could be a surprise to most people.
The officer was treated at the University of Maryland Shock Trauma and has been released. We are very grateful and very fortunate that the officer was not more severely injured based on everything that occurred.
An Anne Arundel County police officer is out of shock trauma and back home after he was hit by a stolen car around 2 o'clock in the morning. The suspects, 14 and 16 years old. Now, this story is eerily similar to a Baltimore County carjacking earlier this week. Fox 45's Vincent Hill joins us live right now. Vincent is looking into the trend of juveniles involved with crimes like these and why some leaders say more needs to be done. Vincent.
Yeah, Kai, these brazen acts, some say a juvenile curfew is not a simple solution to stopping juvenile crime. Are we in the package? Yeah, Kai, these brazen acts, some are saying that a juvenile curfew is not enough to stop this juvenile crime trend that we're seeing.
All right, obviously we were having a few issues there with Vincent's story. Possibly we can get back to that shortly. But first, another robbery near Morgan State University. It happened just 1 hour after our Keith Daniels gave a live report in our 10 o'clock newscast just last night. We're told a victim was approached by several suspects at a bus stop just off campus along Lochraven Boulevard and was not hurt. The university has sent out a warning to students about a spike in robberies along the campus border or just off campus in which a number of students have been targeted. BPD and campus police are increasing patrols. You can see our reporting and other security measures being taken on our website right now at foxbaltimore.com. And new tonight, City State's Attorney Ivan Bates celebrates recent big case wins by his office and prosecutors, calling the number of convictions and sentences secured as, quote, staggering. Included in the release, 4 murder convictions, also the vehicular manslaughter guilty plea by Gardnell Carter, a former Monzi employee who hit and killed Charles Buster Banks. Mackenzie Frost has a complete update on that case on foxbaltimore.com.
Full Metro subway link service is back up and running after a system-wide shutdown to inspect smoke this afternoon. The shuttle buses along subway routes are no longer running. Fox 45 did reach out to the MTA surrounding what may have caused the smoke. So far, we have not heard back.
MTA is hosting a hiring event tomorrow for anyone interested in becoming a bus driver. One current driver joined us live on the bus this morning to discuss what it takes to be successful.
You need to be dependable. You've got to be able to understand everything that it takes to learn how to operate the coach. Spacing, speed, watching out for other hazards and different things like that.
If you are interested, head to the hiring event tomorrow at 1515 Washington Boulevard. It starts at 10 a.m., goes until 3 in the afternoon. Make sure to bring your driver's license, your resume, your current driving record, and your CDL permit. Coming up, Governor Wes Moore signing off on a series of bills to help Maryland's veterans. Why another bill on the table has Republicans calling for a veto.
Debt ceiling talks delayed, and Wall Street is getting nervous. I'm Atrell Nashar with why the head of one major bank says he's setting up a war room.
Our next weather maker is on the way, and that could have impacts on your plans tomorrow. The system will bring rain and possible storms starting tomorrow morning. These will continue off and on throughout the day. We're also going to have cooler temperatures. Coming up, I'll break down the timing of tomorrow's weather maker, and I'll let you know what to expect for Mother's Day in my Weather Authority forecast.
Well, it was a slow into the week on Wall Street. All three major indices are down, but no more than 0.5%, so not too bad. Americans' economic worries could make the markets more volatile as a debt ceiling deadline looms.
Leaders in Washington are running out of time to address the debt ceiling after postponing a key meeting between the president and Congress members. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar reports on the warnings from the financial sector about panic from delaying a deal.
A second debt ceiling meeting between the president and congressional leaders postponed, narrowing the already short timeline to avoid economic catastrophe. An exact X date of default isn't known yet, but the Treasury says it could be as soon as June 1st. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office said Friday there's a significant risk the government runs out of cash in the first 2 weeks of June. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reluctant to weigh in on what would happen then.
There are potential different paths that could be taken if that doesn't happen, but there is not a single thing that can be done that will save the United States from considerable economic and financial damage.
Yellen says she's set to meet with senior bankers next week when she returns from a G7 finance minister meeting in Japan.
I want to understand how they're thinking about the debt ceiling, and what I'm hearing is that it is a grave source of uncertainty that is one of the things that businesses are really concerned about.
JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon says he's holding war room meetings every week, and he guesses around May 21st they'll be every day, talking to clients about how they might get through a potential default.
We might get downgraded. The last time we were downgraded, we had like 65 or 70% debt to GDP. Now it's 105. Now our deficits are 2 or 3 times that we had back then. So, we better be very careful.
Panic, he says, can lead to irrational decisions.
I remember even in 2008, people were selling certain securities at 40% of what they would be worth if we had a Great Depression.
At this point, almost all agree the most irrational decision is allowing the country to default in the first place. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
Ahead at 10:30, remembering the fallen in Baltimore County, how leaders are paying tribute to police officers who died in the line of duty.
The border is not open. Not the word from President Biden, but critics say the numbers prove otherwise. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look at the latest efforts to come up with new solutions.
We're following three big stories at 10:30 tonight.
Governor Wes Moore poised to sign a measure restricting wear and carry guidelines next week, while Republicans are sending a letter to the governor asking him to veto the bill.
Title 42 is no more. The immigration impact right now at the border as a pandemic-era restriction comes to an end.
And a rise in violence over marijuana deals in Baltimore County has leaders worried about an illegal market even after its approval for recreational use.
When we see murders that take place over drugs, it's typically over marijuana.
Legal recreational marijuana use is less than 2 months away from becoming reality in Maryland.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson is investigating whether the legal action will help curb some of these crime concerns in Baltimore County.
With the stroke of a pen, this month, Governor Wes Moore made it official. Maryland now poised for the legislation of recreational marijuana on July 1st. But even with legal use fast approaching, the illegal market for pot is still very much reality.
The thing that's driving a lot of the violence is marijuana. The distribution of marijuana.
On WBAL radio this week, Baltimore County Police Chief Robert McCullough calling it a cash crop.
Despite the changes, the underground economy for marijuana still exists. Many of our homicides, a key factor, and the majority of our homicides it's marijuana.
I think the chief is absolutely correct.
Baltimore County State's Attorney Scott Schellenberger points not only to crime, but how illegal pot is often linked to homicides in the county.
There was a murder at the Trader Joe's off of Kenilworth Avenue in Towson some time ago. That was a drug deal, and it was over marijuana. There was another murder in Towson near the credit union. That was a murder, again, over a marijuana deal.
Though some may question how marijuana could be involved, let alone the source of killings in the county.
Everyone has the same reaction. They're like shocked. They're like looking at me like, you got to be crazy. But you just don't see homicides over heroin or homicides over fentanyl or homicides over cocaine. But it always seems to be over marijuana.
Today, Baltimore County Police said legalization may have an impact on the underground market, though the issue is not unique to Baltimore County. It's a reality being faced by communities across the U.S., and illegal underground markets will thrive as long as they are making money. But that Baltimore County Police are prepared to address and combat the issue. But the county's state's attorney says any crime reduction will take at least a year to see.
A lot of that's going to depend on people's attitudes towards walking into a store and buying versus getting it on the street.
Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Next week, Baltimore County Police, they're going to hold a green lab. It's a training session for officers on how to spot drivers who may be high behind the wheel.
A memorial service is held today to honor Baltimore County's fallen heroes. County Executive John Ilshevsky and Police Chief Robert McCullough were among the friends and family who gathered to thank Baltimore County officers who died performing their duties. Some of them shared the pain of losing a loved one.
Myself and Colonel Conger, he was the captain of White Marsh at the time, we went running out of the station, and I think we were like the third and fourth persons to get to that scene. I never knew that then Captain Conger could drive that fast, but we got there within minutes. And we did everything that we could to try to save her that day. That day stays with you.
Local leaders also say that with the increased burden on police officers with violent crime rates and staffing shortages, it is important to thank those working to protect our communities. We do have a sad update in the death of a 1-year-old this past October. The mother has been arrested and charged with murder. Charging documents shared with Fox 45 News show authorities believe Naimia Gilliard suffered injuries consistent with assault and that Ariel Montgomery is responsible. Gilliard was unresponsive when paramedics arrived at a home in Southwest. Her mother has since been arrested in Baltimore County.
We're learning more about an 18-year-old shot and killed in Prince George's County last night. Police say 18-year-old Kentel Batson was killed along Ritchie Road in Forestville just after 6:30 last night. A reward of up to $25,000 is being offered for any information leading to an arrest.
Governor Wes Moore signs a series of bills today focused on supporting Maryland's veterans. The package of bills included policies aimed at expanding veteran health care, increasing their retirement funds, and supporting their families.
Governor Moore set to sign Senate Bill 1 into law this Tuesday, which would limit where legal gun owners can carry their firearms. But there are growing calls now for the governor to veto that bill. A group of Republican lawmakers are making a last-ditch effort, calling the measure unconstitutional. They sent a letter to the governor saying the bill has nothing to do with gun safety. One attorney says the bill was drafted so broadly it may be difficult for gun owners to discern where they can and can't legally carry.
Am I going to get some completely innocent client that has a permit to carry, that isn't sure where they can possess, and they walk in the wrong place on the wrong day unintentionally, and they end up being prosecuted in court? That's the big concern here.
Well, our Rebecca Pryor reached out to the governor's office for a response to the letter, but as of News Time tonight, we have not heard back.
I wrote a letter to President Biden demonstrating and demanding that he declare a national state of emergency due to this immigration crisis.
We don't know what's coming in tomorrow. We don't know what will be coming in a week from now. So we'll continue to work together and continue to be prepared.
Well, from Texas to Arizona, varying levels of concern tonight as Title 42 expires. That measure allowed Border Patrol agents to turn migrants away over COVID reasons. And some along the border are worried its repeal will lead to an overflow of migrants that they simply can't handle. The White House is trying to send a message discouraging immigrants from even showing up, even threatening harsher penalties. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman shows us critics say it's too little, too late.
A steady stream of immigrants loaded into Customs and Border Protection vans on the way to be processed and apply for asylum. Many more still waiting to cross.
The president's going to use every tool that he has, as he has been for the last 2 years.
President Biden accused of talking tough now with that message the border is not open, but also failing to close it or keep close tabs on immigrants once they've entered. The number of encounters at the southern border continually trending higher at an alarming rate, even breaking some records so far this fiscal year.
All right, here we go, guys.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signing a law this week forcing hospitals and companies to check the status of their patients and workers. While Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has filed more than a dozen lawsuits to counter the administration, contending overburdened schools, hospitals, and law enforcement are saddled by the federal government with unsustainable costs as billions of dollars are spent supporting illegal aliens residing in Texas.
This is a decision that was made by President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and congressional Democrats to open up the border to what is nothing less than an invasion.
Democrats argue Republicans don't mind the chaos if it wins them TV appearances and votes.
I do wish there was some good faith like there was back in the days of George W. Bush, and a realization that the system is broken. It's going to take both parties to fix it.
But reports indicate Democrats, too, may be fractured over solutions. Senator Sherrod Brown possibly joining centrists on the Hill, urgently trying to renew a different version of Title 42 for 2 years, which many Democrats and the president oppose. The blame being spread across Washington, but by default, President Biden taking a lot of the heat and trying to prevent it from becoming an even larger problem going into the 2024 campaign. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Lawmakers in Texas have been working on a measure to boost border protections across the state. A bill would create the state's own version of Border Patrol, something Republicans say is a necessary precaution, and the body would be independent from federal Border Patrol. But Democrats argue it's a direct challenge to the Supreme Court, which ruled that states cannot make their own immigration laws.
It and find out where the court is and what the parameters of that decision are.
There is a very real human element here and a story that needs to be told from the perspective of the border communities who are being decimated.
The Texas State House has already agreed on more than $4 billion in state funding for border security. Still ahead, changes to a popular breast cancer procedure, why the new requirements could be pricing thousands of women out of life-saving care.
And still ahead on the late edition, as summer approaches, there's an alert about skin cancer, how a popular anti-aging treatment can help reduce risks.
And tomorrow, we're getting ready for the next weather maker, which will lead to rain and possible storms. But it looks great for Mother's Day, and the Monday that follows, also great weather. I'll let you know the timing of tomorrow's storms and what to expect for Mother's Day and the days that follow in my full forecast.